Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you guys are listening to this. Thank you ever so much for joining the podcast today. We have a guest on who I have to say is someone I have been fighting with to bring him on the podcast for a very, very long time. I'm so happy he's been able to come in and been able to join us today. But we'll introduce him in a minute. He's not that important just yet. But for you guys, listening at home and people that are watching, I just asked one of my friends who sort of has the sort of, because Courtney's not on today. We want to still give you guys a little bit of a transfer update of what we know and what's going on. So all he knows is there's no talk going on. All he knows is that Egeria is still talking. They are still talking with Liverpool at the moment, talking about the finances, about the deal, and about his wages. Apparently, Liverpool are still waiting to see if they can get a better offer than what Reading have re-offered, either by the club itself or by another one. So, yeah, there's no talk at the moment. He hasn't heard any more about players going out. He hasn't heard any more about players coming in. All of it at the moment is all about Egeria, however you would like to pronounce that name. So we'll discuss a little bit more about transfers and that and a little bit later on. Just to let you guys know that the women's podcast that we've done for the very first time is still available. It is on Podbean. And it is still on YouTube for you guys. We are just trying to work out Apple Music, why it's being dodgy. But we're still trying to get that sorted and get all of those uploaded and all of those done for you as soon as we can. Right. Mr. Ryan, we have got the man, the myth, the absolute legend, Mr. Adam, on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. You're so kind calling me a legend. Billy as well in the group chat calling me a ding legend. So it just helps to boost my ego. But yeah, thank you for having me.
No, thank you ever so much for coming on. If people will know, if people don't know, I have been asking Adam to come on the podcast for, I think, but just before we started recording the very first episode. So this is going back over a month, over 2 months or so now. I have been fighting him to come on, but he had other things that he needed to do. He needed to keep his friends happy at Tilehurst End as well, which...
Not exactly. I just had to go on their podcast a bit and then...
He didn't like us. He wanted to see if we were any good first.
My heart lies with the Tilehurst End.
Exactly.
Always.
But we will definitely talk a lot more about them in a minute as well. But what I would like to sort of start off with is I've done a bit of research on you. So we're going to talk a bit about yourself first.
Okay.
So when I say I've done research, I have stalked your LinkedIn.
I saw that.
Yeah, I have really stalked your LinkedIn. I'm on it now. So you've done your GCSE, but then you went to the University for Creative Arts.
Yes.
I see that you're still doing that now.
Yeah.
Your bachelor's. So what sort of got you into? What made you want to go into journalism and doing that part?
For me, I didn't even think about wanting to become a journalist until I was about 16. I'd always read the Tilehurst End from when it pretty much started, and I always as well used to read Charles Watts's content, and from there, from consuming all of that media and all of that sort of stuff, that kind of inspires me really to think, well, this might be the sort of thing that I want to do. And it was just after I finished my GCSEs, I started writing for a new site called Entirely Football. And the editor invited me then to become, after a couple of months, to become an assistant editor there. And funnily enough, I've met possibly one of my best friends up there as well. So it was a good experience. And from there, I was editing other people's content, other submissions. I was writing my own content. I did a feature called Friday Night Takeover, which was basically a blog, just a live blog really, about everything that was happening in the Football League and all that sort of stuff. And I really started to enjoy it. And then I left there after I think it was a few months, maybe to a year, something like that. And me and the other assistant editors kind of just made another website. That didn't really take off, but by the time I was doing all of that, I was fully into AS and A-level media, and I chose business, IT, and of course media, and geography actually as well. Billy, go away on Twitter.
I just saw that as well.
But yeah, I was fully into that sort of thing, and then I did terribly in my AS levels. I got B, D, E, E, and at that point I was thinking, what's going to happen next? But I always had a kind of passion for the media, so I tried to fight back, and I got BBC, which is actually quite ironic considering it's the name of a media organisation. And I managed to get into uni with a BBB. The requirements were BBC. So I managed to get in there, and ever since then I haven't really looked back. But yeah, I was kind of a late bloomer in terms of journalism, whereas some of the boys now that submit to the Tilehurst End, there was one particular lad who's 15, and obviously there's a way to go, but you know, you can see the passion, the enthusiasm that a lot of Reading FC fans actually have, and it's great to see us as one community. And before I go on to anything else as well, just pay tribute to the media coverage we have across the club, because we have the Tilehurst End, Elm Park Royals, we've got you as well. I know you're not overly keen, but I have massive respect for them.
I would like to apologise to all the listeners that he swore. He said.
The reason why I like Elm Park Royals, they've got a feature called The Digestive, and one of the people who contributes there really helped me with one of my audio documentaries last year. His Twitter handle is Per Sandwich Man, that guy, and he couldn't do enough for me. And also some of their podcasts as well, and the fact that they stepped up as well when a lot of the national media didn't, in terms of the Forbury Gardens, and they did the T-shirts. And it's great as well to have such a range of media kind of things as well. We've got this podcast, we've got EPR, we've got TT, and we've also got, I think it's a new YouTube channel called the Reading Review, where they kind of do a watch along. And there's some boys as well who do like a match day vlog and that sort of thing. And this is not even mentioning the one thing that the club run as well, which is the Royal Exchange, which one of the media guys at Reading does, along with Dan Wimbush, who used to be the founder. No, he is the founder. He used to be the editor of the Tilehurst End, and it's great because I don't think many other clubs have that kind of coverage. So the fact that we do have that kind of coverage and so much talent as well, and the amount of work that the likes of Paul from EPR, Sim, Ollie, and Mark, the amount of work that they put in as well to get some of the interviews is just immense. And I think fans sometimes, you know, naturally forget the amount of work that goes behind that. But I'm sure, you know, a lot of people do appreciate the work that these guys do, and they should be commended for it for certain.
Yeah, that's not even mentioning what AD's doing as well, getting regular podcasts out as well.
Yeah, AD Williams as well. And the good thing about AD Williams and Mick Gooding and Tim Dillon, even though people get frustrated with them, is the fact that they know the club inside out. And
Tim Dillon knows the club inside out. He just can't pronounce any of them.
I think that the thing with Tim Dillon is he has a very traditional way of looking at football. I think football's moved on quite a bit, but I still like him as a commentator. I think he's pretty good. Maybe some people don't, but I really appreciate the passion that he has for the club. You can tell he loves doing his job as the sports editor of Radio Berkshire. And it's fantastic that so many people have got involved in making content.
Right. So I completely agree with you. So we're just going to wind it back just a little bit and then talk about a little bit about yourself before we get on to we'll get into more about the other two good ones and Elm Park Royals. I have to put a dig in, it's me. So I saw here that you did an EFL content writer. You were an intern there at Snack Media.
Yes, let me interrupt you there.
Go ahead.
The editor at Football League World is a Reading fan.
Oh,
His
okay.
name is Sam Rourke, and one of the kind of assistant editors as well is Jacob Potter, who also appears on the hashtag. They couldn't do enough for me. They were very nice. It was a great experience writing there, and really kind of gave me a platform to go on and contribute to other things as well.
That's good. Get as many shout outs as you want. With me, just get them out. I don't bother me. Just get all the people out. And Charlie Watts, I think if Ryan can remember as well, very much of, if you listen to the Courtney pod as well, or Anthony Smith, I think it was, sorry, as well. Those two were very influential on Courtney as well, for him going into that and helping him go onto that. So you did the intern for the EFL content writer. What was the sort of... Yeah. So what was the sort of what were you looking at? What sort of were you doing during that time? During you were there?
I was pretty much doing most of my stuff from home. I only went to London pretty much once during my time there, and that was just to get everything checked and for like a kind of interview type thing in Farringdon. And then the rest of it was pretty much. I mean, there wasn't really many inductions or a writing style. They were kind of, I think it's most of journalism, you just get thrown into the deep end in a good way. And then I was writing about 5 or 10 articles per day at that point. And it was just about the Championship, League One, League Two. And it was so refreshing to write for them as well, because of the fact that a lot of media organisations focus on the Premier League. So it was nice to kind of write as well. Quite a bit about Reading as well. So, it was really nice. And that was even before I started writing for the Tilehurst End, believe it or not.
Yeah, I can see here as well. It was roughly near the end or around the beginning. It was sort of overlapping with when you were with the Tilehurst End with doing the match preview writer, if that's right.
I made a mistake with that because...
Well, can you get your LinkedIn right? Because I'm literally copying from it.
So I started writing for the Tilehurst End in November 2018. I wrote one article for them. Simeon replied saying, yeah, it's good. Let's go and go ahead with it. And then I think one of the writers kind of dropped out from doing the match preview. So he was like, do you want to come on board and do some stuff? And since then, they've always been very friendly. I've actually met Mark, Simeon and Dan Wimbush once in a pub to do a podcast. Really nice guys, put a lot of work in. Started that in November 2018, the match preview writing. And then I'm going to go forward a little bit before I go back. And then I pretty much just, at the start of the 1920 season, a guy called Chris Ballard couldn't do them anymore. He showed me the ropes as well, so shout out to him in terms of doing the match previews and the layouts and that sort of thing. But yeah, he did a lot for me as well. And then he left me as pretty much the sole writer in the 1920 season. And then they were advertising for, well, not advertising, but promoting and asking for assistant editors. And I thought, well, may as well, give it a go. They've done a lot, and if I can be an extra helping hand, then so be it.
So with the match preview, with that, because I know in between you for 5 months you were online sports reporter as well, if that's right, for the Express.
Yes.
So I'm going in chronological order to your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
So with those 5 months, I seen that it was just recent you stopped doing that. You did it from January. It says here, I'm going by what you put, January 2020 to May.
Yeah, that's rubbish, because I put it. Basically, what happened was I started. Let me tell you how I got into it, actually. So my dad knows someone at his work, and he's a friend of the digital sports editor at the Express. And my dad's colleague passed my name on, and I emailed the sports editor, and he was like, "Yeah, come on board and do some stuff for us." This is one where I actually travel to London each week. Really valuable experience. It was an absolute dream to write at a national level. I covered some all right stories as well. There was a big one on my final shift in terms of the England game being postponed. So that was quite a big one to cover. And I was given a little bit of freedom as well to do some stuff. But unfortunately, like my LinkedIn profile says, it ended on the 13th of March, because that was just before the coronavirus pandemic. But I'm convinced that I got COVID at that point because I was going through Waterloo and London Bridge at that time, and the transmission in London was very, very high. So that was the last day, and then it got suspended. And then I pretty much accepted that it just wasn't gonna carry on. There's much more important things, even though it was a great experience, and I thank all the editors, assistant editors, and all the work that was there. I accepted that it was pretty much gone after that, because my internship was supposed to run until May, but we were still in lockdown by that point.
Yeah, no. So then I can see that you went from there and you've become an assistant editor, and then you've just recently, it says here, from May this year to present, you've been a reporter for Tyndall newspaper.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the Tilehurst Stand, because I think they're probably the best with reporting stuff with Reading and podcasts as well. I think out of all of my personal opinion, others will think differently to myself. So what's it been like working for there and sort of covering, I think you're doing the job that you really like. You're covering the team that you love. I think you love them. Because you are, according to Billy, and Billy has a shout out for you, a Ding legend. So what's it like? What have you found what are the best things that you found, and what is the difficulties? I wouldn't say worse, because there's always obstacles to come through. So what is the difficulties that you've really found during your time there?
Nothing.
Tough question.
Nothing, because
really?
The fact is I'm covering the team that I love, and even though it's for free and none of us really get any money except from the generous people from the Patreon campaigns, but I think we put all of that towards getting new equipment and upgrading that sort of stuff. It's an absolute pleasure to be working with Simeon, Ollie, Mark. They show me the ropes. It's a pleasure to write, even though it's for free, about my football club. It's great to collaborate with other writers and to also help, as I said, the writer who was quite young, just to edit and pass some feedback on, and that sort of thing. Of course, my schedule is busy sometimes, so I guess that's the difficulty in terms of making sure that I'm doing my job properly. But an example of that really is the fact that I've taken a little bit of time away from doing it, because obviously I've done I think it was 58 or something match reviews this season. So it was quite a lot to do. And I don't dispute that probably Mark and Simeon and Ollie have probably done a lot more. Maybe I need to pull my weight a little bit more. But yeah, I've taken some time away from writing, because I do politics, I do sport, I do education, mental health, lifestyle. And obviously I've been writing newspapers, magazines, and the Reading match programme as well once. Just before lockdown.
We saw that. Well done. That was a big achievement. That's
probably the one that I'm most happy with, because I used to read as a season ticket holder when I was a lot younger. I used to read the match programme like every week when we were at home. So to open one up and see my face in there is pretty surreal, to be honest, and an absolute honour to the club. And I've got to thank the club as well as the Tilehurst End, because without the Tilehurst End, I wouldn't have got that opportunity.
We want to thank the club as well. If you ever want to bring players on, or anyone, we're happy enough to help.
So, where do you see yourself, or where do you want to be in 10 years' time?
That's a difficult question, because the journalism industry is unbelievably competitive. You can see just in the Reading fan base, you can see the talent of the writers that we have. Some of them produce some unbelievable articles. If you look at Ollie Allen's some of his features recently that have been thousands of words, they've been exceptional. And you look at other writers as well that do stuff on their own in terms of Reading, they've done very well. But in terms of me, I'm hoping to use connections to get into the industry. Obviously, I've had an internship at the Express newspapers. Obviously, I'm not going to beg them to take me on, but hopefully I can use a few connections in terms of that. But ideally, I want to be in a management position at a journalism kind of institution, like maybe the Express or something like that, where I'm kind of leading kind of a team, nothing too high up, but leading a team, because that's what I've always wanted to do. I've taken charge of our university's official radio station, and really enjoyed doing that. So I want to put those kind of skills that I picked up into practice and be a good manager. And that's pretty much what I want to do. Obviously, I want to do my own journalism as well and write my own reports and stuff like that. But I want to make it a good environment for journalists, and I want to also change kind of the organisational cultures of some of these journalism institutions and kind of make journalism a better place. I think it was a couple of months ago where the trust in the media fell to 28%, and that's not good enough for us. That's so not good enough at all. And I just want to make sure that journalism is authentic and that it's original and that it's not clickbait, even though I guess I understand why clickbait does happen, because of they need to get revenue for digital adverts and stuff like that, because circulation during the coronavirus pandemic of newspapers has gone like that, unsurprisingly. So changing the organisational culture and just being a decent journalist and being able to look at myself in the mirror is something that I would like to do, but I haven't got a real set plan. I think that my degree gives me quite a lot of job opportunities in the future, not just in journalism but in PR and that sort of thing. But I'm just going to roll with it and see what happens, because I know there's a lot of other talented journalists in the industry, and if you want to become a successful journalist, you can't stop working and you can't stop for a second. So it's interesting, but I'm just going to do the very best that I can.
Well, that's a very politically good answer, and I think if you're someone like myself and Ryan, what we see looking in, which you probably can't say yourself because it's about you, is that you have probably the biggest future out of anyone doing journalism, I think, doing anything, because I think this has proven my point exactly. What I'm about to say is what I've just discovered, is that you're probably one of the nicest, well-mannered people I think I've ever come across.
Thank you.
And I feel like that's probably a testament to yourself, that even when I try and put you off by certain things at the beginning and I do this with everyone as well, and I will do this as well, and I try and get the person from it. And with you, you're just you, and the way you talk and everything about it. If there's anyone listening that could help Adam become the biggest journalist in the world, help him out. I want to see him become the best, and I want to see him do the more. So we're going to talk less business, and we're going to get more personal. Not that personal. So what we want to know from you is what got you into Reading? How did you become a Reading fan?
It's interesting, really, because from about age 0 to 5, I was interested in cars. I could go on the motorway with my family and name every single car there was. Now I can't do that at all. But it was from about the age of 6, really, that I started getting into football. I did this after school club with my primary school, Whitegrove Primary School in Bracknell, in Warfield. And I just started doing football. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because you hammer Will for it, but I, from about 6 till about maybe 5 to about 6 or 7, I used to support Arsenal.
No, Arsenal's fine. Fine.
Because my dad supports Arsenal, and he got me into it. And obviously, he let me choose my own club. But when I started off being an Arsenal supporter. And at that time, Arsenal weren't doing all that good, really, because I think it was their last season at Highbury, and they were kind of they had to save, obviously, because they were building a new stadium. And obviously, I've missed, because obviously I was interested in cars. I've missed the Invincible season, and to be honest, if the Invincibles was maybe 2007 or something, I might have stayed supporting Arsenal. I know that sounds fickle, but it might have been naturally. I might have stayed as an Arsenal fan, but it started off really when my obviously these people who came after school and trained us, they were like Reading FC coaches. Then they weren't coaches of Reading, but they were licensed by Reading. and they wore all the kit and that sort of thing. And then one of my dad's colleagues gave us some tickets to go and watch a Reading match in the 06-07 season. And you think that it would definitely be a win for us, considering the 06-07 season was very good, our first season in the Premier League. But it was our 2-0 home loss against Watford. So it was the worst possible game to pick. But then in the 07-08 season, the season that we got relegated, we started going to more games and took his seats, and then started going to more games. And from there, even though we were relegated, I kind of stayed with Reading. They were a local team. And then when I first got my season ticket in 2008, 2009, it was kind of, I like watching Steve Coppell's football. I like Championship football. And it was affordable as well to go to Reading. I mean, you look at Arsenal's prices, they're just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And, football is a working class game. So I think Arsenal have lost sight of that. But Reading have always been really reasonable with their prices. And, I just started going to Reading from there and became a season ticket holder, and, again, haven't looked back.
Plus massive waiting list for a season ticket at Arsenal.
Yeah. My older brother is a season ticket at Arsenal. He went on the waiting list 3 seasons before Highbury ended. And when the stadium moved, they offered him a ticket. They said, "Okay, we've got 3." He pays £1,100 and something pound a year for his season ticket. But he says, he goes, "It may be ridiculous to some and others, but for me, I get to go every single week to watch the club I love." And I went, "You pay it. If Reading did it, I'll probably pay it too." No, me. I'll probably pay all of that as well. No, me. So
there's one link between Arsenal and Reading. It's the one that us two disagree on. And that's Kia.
Yeah, we do. We will discuss that later. We will definitely discuss that. We will definitely discuss that later. But go on, Ryan. I have talked a lot. So, Ryan, you may ask the next question on the list.
So, who was your favourite Reading player when you were growing up? We'll change the question a bit, and we could include Arsenal on that, and change it in terms of like what player made you fall in love with football properly and get away from cars, how it was.
I think making me fall in love with football is Henry.
I thought it would be, to be honest,
and definitely because he was the main man at Arsenal. And in terms of Reading, I think it would have to be Dave Kitson. For some unknown reason, I had an obsession with Dave Kitson. I think he was a very good player. He could have gone on to do even better things. He ended up at Stoke, and it just didn't really work out a lot for him. I think he had mental health problems and that sort of thing. But Dave Kitson was one of the players that I really liked as well, and obviously contributed massively, not just the 05-06 season, but before that as well. And whose alarm's going off?
There's a car outside.
And
I'll mute myself a second.
It's all right. But yeah, I think it was him as well. Likes of Doyle and Kitson. I don't think there's one. Even though I said Kitson, I don't think there's one particular player that made me fall in love with Reading. I think it was the whole package. You've got Hanneman, Shorey, who made him a cap for England. You've got Inga Marston, Sonko, Murty. You've got pretty much all the first 11, Sibwell as well. So
just that whole team in general was just perfect.
In general, even though it wasn't the 05-06 season that a lot of people fell in love with, it was still a great team, and you could really sense that togetherness. And we had a real identity and a vision, and I think that's what we're missing now. But we had that real kind of togetherness, and I'll never forget that team. Never, ever.
No, I completely agree with you. So we'll do the same sort of question, but I'm gonna twist it. So instead of the favourite, who was the worst player that has really annoyed you wearing a Reading shirt?
By annoy, he means how he feels about Gareth McCleary.
Yeah. There's no one player that's really annoyed me. I think obviously that Robson Carney received a lot of flack for kind of coming across quite lazy. I'm not sure if that's his playing style or whether that's actually him.
No, he's just rubbish.
So obviously Robson Carney annoyed fans quite a bit. At one stage, Tyler Blackett did as well, quite a lot. I remember fans booing him, which I don't think was right at all.
I never
but
booed.
I thought Blackett was pretty good. So that's not one for me. I think one of the worst players that I've seen. It's going to be really harsh because they're all obviously professional football players, and I don't want to, do anyone. But I saw Marcus Williams at left back for one game in a Carling Cup, and it just didn't seem to do anything right.
I remember that.
It just. I remember him going down the wing once, and that was pretty much it. I think the rest of it was pretty much mistakes. So yeah, But I don't think I don't think any one player has really annoyed me to the point where I've kind of shouted like constantly at them. So that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not really anyone that's made me angry. I think Robson Kanu's comments after he left being released by Reading was the best decision of his life. That kind of
right.
So, up the wrong way.
I'm going to go on a frigging rant about that bellend, right? I'm very sorry for going off on one. But the only thing that man has ever done was that Cruyff turn against Belgium. And what's he done since then? All he has done is sat on his ass on the bench with West Brom. Oh, look, I got promoted. You did nothing. Your left foot is literally nothing. You fat, overweight, useless piece of plonk.
To be fair, he must have been doing something right to be signed by West Bromwich Albion.
No, he was cheap wages. Wasn't he signed by Tony Pulis and did want to sign him?
Oh yeah, and that was just after his Cruyff turn. I just forgot. Yeah, I mean,
didn't Tony Pulis not want to sign him? He wanted to sign someone else, but Hal Robson turned up.
Yeah.
So all right. So I'll ask you the same sort of question, Ryan, because I think we've had this sort of discussion before as well. Who's your least favourite in the Reading shirt?
I know who it is, and I've said it before, and I know what your reaction is going to be. Ulysses De La Cruz.
Oh, how can you disrespect the man?
I researched him the other day. He is a politician now in Ecuador. He's part of, I think it's the centre-left. He used to identify as a democratic socialist, but I think he's gone a little bit more to the centre now in Ecuador. Weird how...
I love that. Do you know what? That makes me love the man even more for some reason. He's one of those players I just loved. Okay, so...
he wasn't a very good football player.
He was.
But he did a lot for charity.
Exactly.
He did a lot for charity. I remember his goal against Sheffield United to make it 3-0 or 3-1.
Right, go on, Ryan. This one... all right, so this one's an easy answer, I think, to get, but you can't use the obvious.
Who's the best manager or manager that you've liked the most at Reading?
Best manager, Koppel. The one that I most liked was McDermott first time. Just for the way McDermott I liked the most, just for the way he responded the first time. The time that we lost against Swansea in the playoff final, we could have collapsed completely. And I guess we did a little bit at the start of the next season, but the way he managed to pick those players up, the decision to make Joby McAnuff captain. I know the brand of football wasn't the absolute prettiest, but it was entertaining because we were going down the wing with McAnuff, with Kebe, and it was just so entertaining to watch as well. And, I'll never forget the promotion and the pitch invasion against Nottingham Forest. And
I still hear McAnuff's words.
But
on the pitch, are we up?
Yeah,
are we up?
Up, yeah. But the best manager, I think, has been Steve Coppell. To get 106, it just says a lot, really, doesn't it? I mean, and to get 8th as well the following season with a limited budget, just extraordinary, really. And I think a better story than Wolves, even though I'll take nothing away from them and fair play to them. And I wish I was in a Wolves fan position right now. That the Reading 8th place finish was just special because we brought through a lot of players that played in the Championship the previous season and didn't make any huge signings. I think one of the most expensive signings was Emerese Faye the following season, which turned out to be awful. And Greg Halford was brought in as well for quite a big fee.
Oh, cocaine head. I remember him.
I think another player that annoyed me I think it was Jamie Mackey when he came back for QPR and celebrated in front of us for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Because he's a knob.
Can I change who my least favourite player is now?
No. No.
I forgot Greg Halford ever played for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
He didn't play for us much, did he? He spent like 6 months there and then he was out on his own.
I'm going to do a controversial opinion here. I respect Brian McDermott, but I never liked him. I was very much a fan of, okay, he did his bit, right, we need someone to come in. And he did. I respect him for what he did and how we bounced back and how we did everything. I didn't like his play style. I didn't like the way that certain things were being done. But I would never voice my opinion in the stadium.
Yeah.
I will boo when I lose my top. I'm never one of those who just boo every 5 minutes.
I think the thing for me is the fact that, considering we had a Russian billionaire owner, and the fact that we didn't really spend a lot, except from on wages. I think I don't know how much we gave Progresniak. It was probably a ridiculous amount.
I hate to think about it.
I don't think we're going to finish any better than 19th. I think we were lucky to finish above QPR and Mark Hughes. But we never really had the quality to stay in the Premier League. And I do feel sorry for McDermott in terms of that, because where was the quality? We signed Hope Akpan, Nick Blackman and players like that in the January transfer window coming from League One. In all fairness, Akpan was very good against the likes of Bolton when we won 7-1. He was good in stages, and Blackman obviously had that very good start of the season as well. And I don't deny their ability, but to be signing them when we were in the Premier League, when we were supposed to be trying to stay up, just didn't make sense to me. But perhaps thank God we signed them. Otherwise, we might have been in even further financial turmoil when Anton left.
Yeah. Talking about McDermott, just you saying about him, I'll ask you both. But as he has just left Arsenal, hasn't he, with all of their, would you take him back at Reading in any role, director of football, or even back as a manager?
Mark, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
No.
Not anywhere at all?
No. The thing that I find... Okay, so I'm trying to think of a way of putting this, because I know that when I start, I'll start babbling, and I've got to try and structure my words and sort of how to sort of get my point. I understand when people say they want him back. I get it. He's someone who knows Reading, but it's a completely different Reading than when he was here before. The only person I think maybe that was here before is Nigel Howell. Might have been here before. You've got new owners, you've got a new manager, you've got new players, you've got everything about the structure of the club is gone from what he was here before. He will not have the freedom. We know this because of a certain individual that's starting to get involved. He will not have the influence he wants, because he wanted that influence at Arsenal, but the person that's getting influence at Arsenal is also now having influence at Reading. And also, you should never go back to a club 3 bloody times. I'd never agree with going back to a club after you've left before. I think if you're a manager, you should never go back. Look at Mourinho.
Unless you're Jose Gomez, of course.
Unless it's Gomez, that man can come and sit on me any day. That's a sexy man.
I think the thing for me is the fact that you're looking at a director of football these days at many clubs, maybe not Reading, but you're thinking that's just as important now as being a manager. You look at the lifespan of managers, and they're not lasting at all. They last about 6 months, something like that. So I think a director of football, that's what I said in my article for the Tilehurst End at the end of the season, on the same day that the last preview got released. The fact that I would like BOWEN as director of football, because I think he could make a good impact here, but just not managerially. I would take McDermott back in a director of football role. I think I would, because he would help us to give us some direction. I think he understands that the game is now a lot more modern. I think he'll adapt to that. I think he would find it harder managerially than he would in a director of football role. That's why I would take him back as a director of football, but I'd never go back again as a manager. I think the second time he was trying to play, another brand of football with shorter passing, it just didn't really work at all. But director of football, yeah, maybe. But how effective he would be, probably not very much, as you say. So, yeah, it's hard.
I don't think he should come back either. Both positions, I don't think.
My feeling about it is I wouldn't take him as manager, because I've said before, it becomes, people will start remembering more for the two failed spells rather than the one mega spell. just look at the likes of like Kenny Dalglish at Liverpool, where he kept going so much that the fans started sort of going off him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think
I don't
let him
think-
have that legacy of taking him up.
I don't think Kenny Dalglish will ever ruin his reputation with Liverpool.
No, not at all.
But
Not
that
at
as
all.
well, in terms of Reading, in terms of Nigel Howe, is he going to ruin his legacy? Because he did very well in his first stint as CEO, and then he was downgraded to vice president. But now he's going to come back, and I think people are going to view him quite badly if this turns out to be very bad. But I don't think he's got a lot of influence. I don't think he's got a lot of influence at all. And credit to De Jong for being hands-on, but he needs to make the right decisions. And if he's making the right now, well, that remains to be seen. But
we'll talk about that. We'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a little bit, but we want to move on to the next question that we got here. We've talked about the best, and we did the same with the. Who's the worst manager that you've seen at Reading? Personal opinion, and you can't say Gomez. I'm joking.
I would say, because Brendan Rodgers was terrible in his spell at Reading, but I'm going to go with Paul Clement, but just because of the fact that under him there was no vision. I don't think it was his fault, because Ron Gourlay obviously stripped everything back and made it all about him. So I don't think I can really blame Paul Clement, but we had no identity. There was absolutely no motivation for us fans to come to the stadium and watch the team. It was a time where we started disconnecting from the club. Obviously, Tevredin had gone, Stam had gone, and it was just awful. Like, there was just nothing, absolutely nothing about his tenure here. There was just no real positives, I guess, except from him keeping us up, and I'm grateful to him for that. But the following season was just absolutely dire. I
wish they gave Brendan Rodgers more money and more chance. I really liked the way Brendan Rodgers was trying to build that team. But I love Brendan Rodgers as a person. I've met him, I spoke to him, and he's one of the nicest people in football I've ever sort of come across. So with him, I love that.
If I was Majewski, I would have sold at that point, because according to a report, I think he's lost about 800 million since 2008 or something like that.
He's lost a lot of money.
And if I was him, I would have, in hindsight, I would have sold back then. Obviously, it might not have been as bad back then, because we might have had parachute payments and that sort of stuff, but he's lost a lot of money. And I think a lot of
that, though, is from everything that happened with Zingarovic and his money going. I think Majewski very much saved us from liquidating.
Yeah, he was desperate at the time, and we had to sell to Sasima Sivrakorn and Narayan and Tiger. We had to sell to them. There was absolutely no choice. We were going down the pan otherwise. So he found a buyer, credit to him, and he kept our club afloat for the time that Anton had gone. So we should always be grateful for what he's done for the club.
Oh, he's an absolute legend. He's not a nice person, but he's a lovely. But he did great for the club.
I think I'm right in saying if we hadn't have sold Sean Morrison and Adam Lafondra when we did, that could have literally ruined us.
Yeah, because we didn't want to sell Lafondra, and we didn't particularly want to sell Morrison, but it was particularly the Lafondra one we had to pay off for like an HMRC type thing. Was it Vibrak or something? We had to sell Lafondra in the end, otherwise we were pretty much gone. So he made some very good decisions. He was very astute with his money. I remember there being a word that he used, prudent. That's the word that he used. He always used to use the word prudent, and I would describe him with that, because he was very wise with his money. And I do commend him for that. It was just, I think we need a mixture of De Jong and John Majewski in terms of just morph them into one person. We've got John Majewski's decision-making and De Jong's funds, and we'd be a great club. We might even be in the Premier League by now.
Mm-hmm. Go on then, you ask the next one.
In your opinion, who is the best transfer that the club have made?
Well, they did a double deal, didn't they, with Doyle and long. I think it was 50,000, and they went on to be established Premier League figures. And I think that we did those both transfers together, and to get two gems like that, I don't think that can ever be defeated. To be honest, I'm guessing there's a lot of clever people here who could kind of make a point about another player, and there's been a lot of good deals being done. But I think those two is the one that pops up into my head, because that was just amazing. I think we got Stephen Hunt from Ireland as well in that window. So magnificent.
I'm glad you said that, because if you hadn't, that would have been one that I mentioned, because I think it was £58,000 for the two of them.
And you've got to consider as well, their wages mustn't have been high. A lot of people, I think, forget the amount of cost that is to keep on running wages, because it's a continuous kind of span of contracts that you've got to adhere to. So the amount of money that you spend on wages is underrated. And coming from Ireland and at that level, they mustn't have been on that much, and they contributed so much during that 05-06 season. And we probably got a lot of money from promotion and the TV deals to follow afterwards. So it's probably the best bit of business that we've ever done as a club.
We spoke about AD's podcast, and I remember the Brian McDermott one. He said when he was on there, he went over to Ireland to scout Doyle and Long. Was about to leave the game early, but realised well, I haven't got anywhere else to go, so I watched the end. And Doyle done something absolutely magic in the last minute and knew them. But for the first, I think, 8 or 9 months that Shane Long was over here, he was actually living on Brian McDermott's sofa. Yes.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah.
And the fact is, you've got to as well look at the other things that McDermott did. He was a reserves manager. He did a bit of scouting. He did everything at the club before he became manager. So the impact that he's had has been absolutely massive. Absolutely massive. Yeah. And I think it was the best signing that Steve Coppell said that he made was Brian McDermott, and I would totally agree with that, because of the great players that he brought here, and absolutely brilliant, both of them as a dream team, to be honest, and they should never be forgotten in Reading history.
Yeah, agrees. Okay, so let's flip it around then, like we've done with the others. Who's the worst transfer? We're not talking about money, because everyone will go with Aluko.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Aluko.
We'll go with Aluko. Is definitely up there with the top two. I'm trying to think as well. But if we take Aluko out of the question, who would you say would be, not money-wise, just as a player or ability?
Are we saying in sense of what we expected versus what we got from them?
Yeah, whatever you
class. Of
whatever you think is the worst.
I think the Kumalo loan at the start of the 2011-12 season was absolutely disastrous, bless him, because he was captain of South Africa at the time, a very, very good player. They came to Reading and just turned rubbish. I don't know why, because he was such a good player in the World Cup. He beat France. He captained the team. He was a leader alongside Alex Pearce. So I'm not sure what the hell went wrong there. But you've got to look at Marcus Williams as well, as I said again. But I'm trying to think as well of other players that have not been very good.
I think expectations versus reality. Scott Goulburn is his name? He was the left back or right back, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was the next taken over. He was like the reincarnation of one of the best fullbacks we were going to have, and just did nothing.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at Greg Halford as well. He was one for the future, and then left after 6 months.
Because he was a dick.
It was just yeah.
Okay, so
one that I think you should put in there then, just because what did he do here, but has gone on and done absolute incredible things. What about Daniel Carrico? Spent money on him, and then.
But would you? I wouldn't class it as the worst transfer, because we never bloody played him.
But he had a terrible. Well, I'm guessing this is just after his one appearance. I can't really judge him too harshly. But his first half performance against West Brom in our 3-2 victory, and we were 1-0 down at half time. He was terrible. He got taken off, didn't he? But then he's gone on and done very well.
He was one of those players that I wanted them to give him a chance, but they would never give him the blimmin' chance. And then he was loaned out, I think, to Seville, where he was loaned out somewhere else, and then he got sold there as well. And it was one of those transfers that annoyed me, because I didn't think we did enough. forward. So let's move it on to current season. So we've had the season and it's all finished, and we'll talk about. Everyone knows my review on what's happened and what's gone on. So I'm gonna add a question in that I haven't put down here. I'm gonna add two parts to a question. How do you think the season was? Quick and easy answer. Can't take too long.
As I said, I'm going to sum this up by my Tilehurst End analogy that I got cut off because my laptop was just being awful. The starter was a burnt garlic bread. You're really looking forward to it, but then it comes and it's just like charcoal, and you're really looking forward to the season because of all the signings that we made. And it was just awful. Middle of the season was a mixed grill because some meats you like, some meats you like a lot less, and the meats in this case representing results. And then you go to the end of the season. I can't remember what I put for the end of the season. I can't remember what did I put for the end of the season? Oh yeah, it was humble pie because of the fact that I predicted us to lose in our 5-0 win against Luton Town. But to sum it all up in terms of a whole drink, I would go with tap water because it was nothing special. It was a season of stability and it was refreshing considering the last two seasons were relegation scraps. So season of stability, but the end of the season was just not very good at all, really. And that's made me quite pessimistic for next season, especially the quick turnaround and the amount of players that we need to get in and the amount of players that we departed. It's just, it wasn't very good at the end of the season, but it was a season of stability.
Okay, so we're going to add the question in. We know the players that have been released with Cleary, yes, and then others as well. So we know there's one signing, Josh Laurent, has come in. I got that name right, didn't I? Thank God. I struggle with names. You'll find this out. I am the Tim Deller of podcasts.
Yeah, I saw that the Portuguese goalkeeper who came in on loan.
Yeah, vagina.
Rated.
Yeah.
Policy.
Disgusting.
So
you telling me that I was swearing earlier.
You can't say that word. But okay, so we've made a signing. Everything, we've gone very quiet. I think it's all about the outs this window. Who would you like to come in? Not what you think the club will do, because that's another question that we'll ask after. So this is a two-part. What did you, if you were the manager and you were the CEO and you were the one making the transfer, what would you do? And then the second part to that question is, what do you think will happen?
I think we need players who've got experience in the English leagues. I sound like a right Brexiteer here, but we need players who've got experience in the English league so they can take to the field straight away, if they can settle in nicely. It would also help if we've got players in, like a couple of players that have played together before, maybe like the Long and the Doyle type of thing. Obviously, we're not going to get a deal better than that, but I think we need to bring in some players. Obviously, we need to go cheap. The reality is, I think it's going to be dictated a bit by Kia's. Obviously, I have no real bad feeling towards him. It's just his track record at other clubs. I think it will be dictated by Kia's contact book, and that's not going to help us at all in terms of establishing an identity and a vision for our club. And even if we're not performing the best, it's that vision and that identity that's going to bring fans to the stadium when we're allowed back in. But if we've got no identity and no vision like we have over the past few years, fans are not going to come, and we've seen that with the dropping attendance figures. And for me, we need to get that identity back, and we can start with the academy.
Yeah, no. I think I saw. I don't know whether, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see. I saw an interview today, Reading released with Tom Holmes, I think his name is, the centre back who was on loan at Belgium last season.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was. And I saw the interview with Hosgrove, I think his name is as well. I saw an interview with them two. And something inside of me went, oh, this is going to be a good year. Just by the way they come across, the way that they spoke about the club, and the way that I think their love for Reading. Tom was saying it was very much a different experience for him to go to Belgium, as he's always put on a Reading shirt, and now he might be able to put another Reading shirt on. I think we have differences of opinion on Kia.
Yeah.
We'll get into that now because we haven't got that much time left, but we'll get into a little bit of that now because we've just got a few more questions left, but we'll get into that. So I'll let you explain your opinions on him, and then I'll explain why I'm right, and then we'll go.
Yeah,
just like he was right about our starting 11s.
I was right about my team. I'm not going to lie.
I should do mine actually at some point, but
yeah, we'll get you involved as well.
So the thing for me with Kia is this previous track record. When I look at someone, I look at their track record. Now, if I'm right in saying he was involved in one of the dodgiest English transfer deals in history with Carlos Tevez, he's annoyed QPR fans, he's annoyed Arsenal fans, and quite frankly, for a short-term fix like Emi and Oviajari and that sort of thing, he was perfect for that sort of thing. Long-term, establishing a long-term identity and vision, something we don't currently have. I think that we definitely need to kind of put him onto the side, and we need to use him for our benefit in terms of vice versa. Now, Wolves are a very different story. They've got their super agent called George Mendes, and they have managed to use him to their advantage because they've managed to establish a Portuguese identity through that. Now, with Arsenal, I don't think that's going to be the case because they're bringing in Willian and that sort of thing, and Arsenal fans are quite unhappy. And people are now starting to call Arsenal a retirement home. Now, I don't see him being, with the current finances and the current state our finances are currently in, and the size of the club that we are, I think he's going to try and do something that we can't possibly do. He's going to be like another Gourlay, where Gourlay is going to try and he's going to try and put us on Premier League wages. He's going to try for a short-term solution in terms of making us a Premier League club. And for me, that's just not the way to do it. We need to start from scratch, and preferably without him. Obviously, I have no real bad feeling towards him, but I just don't think he's going to work out in the long term. Now, your turn.
Okay, so my opinion is he's going to make us what we need to be. I don't look at Twitter and listen to their reactions because Twitter said Boris Johnson's going to get absolutely battered, and then look what happened. He won. So I don't really look at Twitter or listen to football Twitter because everyone has an opinion about everything and everyone. So I go on face value. What I can see of what he's doing is he brought Cedric in to Arsenal in January. He might have been injured, but that was a long-term deal for Arsenal to have cover because Bellerin's injured every 5 minutes. And he needs cover that will play right back and left back. He's also bringing in William, who I think, and if people say his retirement home is a load of crap, because Chelsea fans were crying for him to sign a contract 3 weeks ago, and they were crying for him to sign a new deal because he was banging in goals left, right, and centre. So for them saying now, it's become a retirement home, it's a load of crap. Because you can't get the player that you wanted, you're now going to go and blame. He's gone to Arsenal, and he's going to do something Arsenal that Arsenal need. They're now going to play Aubameyang forward. They're going to put William on the left or the right, and then you've got Pepe on the right, and Lacazette will just come off. They need someone to bring Aubameyang where he is the best played, which is the centre, and that's what they're doing. And then and then you've got other players that I haven't finished it. And then they've got other players that they're signing in. They're looking at the Sporting winger that they're looking to. 17-year-old I heard that they're looking in. They're also bringing in a Brazilian in the next few days as well, who's a long-term project. People that are crying and saying he's not good for their club are people that are very short-sighted of seeing what is actually happening. What he did for our club, for those transfers in the January, I think people need to praise him more for what he did and what he's doing. Because if you look at the players who we brought in that summer, that Gomez has said as well that the club, and we all needed to realise, was from then on was going to be a pre-season until they were fit. Until Puskas actually decided that he knew how to play English football, he was never going to be a good signing. That's going to be an excellent signing, and I have no doubts in that whatsoever. You've got João, who has instantly hit home with the fans. And I think if you give this bloke time, and I think if you look at what they're trying to do, I don't think he's one of those players. He's not shy to go on telly as well and defend certain things as well. He definitely had a ruckus with Gary Neville on Sky Sports. He's not shy. He will do something that's right. Yes, he will benefit himself. Everyone in football is in for themselves. And if they don't say that they're not, they're bullshitting. Everyone in football is in for yourself. It's what you do with that person. And I trust him for what he did in that transfer window in January.
Yes.
He must have had a deal. He must have been in place as well for that Josh Orient as well deal to go through. He must have been in place to go and do something with that before as well. To be fair
though, Dye trusted Gawley for like 2 years.
But then if you look at Dye as well history, he made a mistake, and we Reading fans love bringing up mistakes that people do in the past and love doing it. And I think this is why we have one of the worst. And you can hit me as much, shout at me as much as what one of the worst fan bases for fickleness.
They're your audience.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. We've got one of the worst fickle fan bases. 1 minute they will lick a player's ass and say he's the next best player in the world. 2 minutes later, he makes one mistake. Oh shit, it's rubbish. Can't do that. Can't do this.
All football fans are fickle in the short term because we get
we're the worst.
Buzz. We all get a short-term buzz from signings, and I think it's just the nature of football. I think because we don't see other people's fan bases, I think you might think that's the worst, but I think we've got a lot of level-headed fans. I think we've got a lot of kind fans.
No, I'm not saying. What I'm not saying is we've got. I'm not saying we've got no good fans. People who listen to this podcast are brilliant. People who don't listen to it and listen to the other one are absolute rubbish. But apart from the Tyler's End one, it's just the other one. For me, I feel like in general, I think the fans don't look at the long term. We look at right now. Tyler Blackett, in my opinion, was a terrible signing. He did nothing until his contract was coming up, and then decided that he was going to turn into what's his name? Andy Robertson from he was up and down that wing. He could go anything, and then he's linked to going to Turkey and everything, and now he's off to America to go with Jaap Stam.
I think he's good in terms of the playoff season. I thought he fits in very well in terms of the back three. I think
very unreliable.
And his confidence, Tyler Blackett's confidence, because obviously the fans were booing him at one point, was shot, and I think his confidence was very shot. We don't know the wages that he was on. So I think I judge a lot of signings as well by the wages that they're on. Because Leon Moore on the reported £35,000 a week is just ridiculous. We could get like 5 championship players for that. But obviously he was offered the contract and he's taken it. So
you would.
We can't really do very much.
Okay,
I was thinking about this yesterday with League One and League Two introducing the salary cap.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to go down this season, we would be screwed, massively screwed.
Yeah.
Because the thing that I saw on Twitter was something like it said so Solihull Moors in the conference can pay Adam Rooney £4,000 a week.
Yeah.
But Sunderland, Portsmouth, clubs like that in League One can't pay any player more than £1,800 a week. And how many of our players are on £1,800 a week? We would be ruined.
The salary cap, right? It's the same. I think it's a similar thing with FFP. The fact is, with the salary cap in League One and League Two, that's going to increase the golfing quality between the Championship and the League One, because you're not going to be able to attract with very low wages the best players to be in League One. Now that's going to bring a bridge of gulf between the Championship and League One, and you're going to get loads of teams yo-yoing down. Obviously, it happens in football anyway, but you're going to get loads of people going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and that's not good for football at all. It's not at all.
It makes it even harder when you have the likes of, let's say Rotherham, for example, because they've been a typical yo-yo club for the last 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah,
but if they come up and increase all of their wages, they go back down, and they're in trouble because they're already breaking
all of their new signings will have to be a 1-year deal. All of their signings will just have to be a 1-year deal, and if they go down, they can't renew it.
Yeah. I get that they've got to be fiscally responsible clubs. They've got to be more fiscally responsible because some transfer fees are just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But you've got to make sure that the league stay competitive throughout the pyramid. Otherwise, what's the point? You're either going to be a team that stays in the same division season after season, which I guess even though you have a passion for your club, it's going to get a bit boring and you're going to get a little bit disillusioned. Or you're going to be a yo-yo club. You can go up, down, up, down, up, down, like a roller coaster. I mean,
but now the fact that they've introduced that it's now making someone like AFC Fylde, Solihull Moors, like one of the higher teams in the conference, them sort of teams that are pushing for playoffs, your Eastleys, your Solihull Moors, Notts County, they're going to be more attractive than someone like Accrington in League Two. Because
but I wouldn't go on the salary cap, because a lot of Premier League have questioned it, and the EFL are looking, and then they've asked the FA to look into the salary cap as well.
The one good cap that they've done is the ticket cap of £30.
Yes.
They should do that in the EFL as well. It's ridiculous. Leeds United charging £39, and I know they say, "Oh, you wouldn't come anyway," and that's probably half true, but it's ridiculous. The amount of the amount of money that you're charging per game for an away fan.
Yeah.
You've got to remember as well, people have got to come up as well from Reading to Leeds. That's a cost in itself. You've got food, which is a cost in itself. Maybe a hotel, even though people don't have to get a hotel. But otherwise, it's going to be a very, very long journey and a very, very long day. And then when you get to the ground, you're being charged £39. It's ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. I'm so glad that they.
Sorry to interrupt. With that price cap, they've that's only for away fans in the Premier League. So one of my friends is a Palace fan, and he said a home ticket at Selhurst Park cost him £53.
It's ridiculous.
And that's for a like your typical like crap unattractive game. Like if we as Reading fans, if someone said to us like, "Oh, do you want to go and watch Crystal Palace versus Southampton?" It's not attractive. That would be £53.
You're going to think of that game as like a 15-20 quid game.
Yeah, they increase it for the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Man United.
Yeah. Okay. Even though it's a privilege to watch these players, you go on.
No. I think we could go on all day about pricing and what how rubbish EFL treat the clubs, and especially with Bury, and there's going to be fun.
That's a different pod in the whole.
Yeah,
that is.
Next season you've got Watford. He got relegated.
Yeah.
This is my smug face to all Watford fans, because I really don't like your club or you.
Or or something.
No, I just hate them. I went to their state. So I had a friend in college who was a Watford fan, and he was an arse. And he was an absolute arse. And I went to one of their games, and I was in the Reading end. Watford is a very much a on its own. And I was walking out of the ground. I went by, and I just walked past, and I just went, you know when you just have a realization that you just don't like him. And I just had a realization, just the whole club about it, just hate him. Anyway, moving on to the next question. We've got a few more questions before we go and before we end the pod. We've got two questions here that I think are going to be interesting for both of you. This question is definitely for both of you as well. Who's going to be the biggest influence this season?
Should we ask where we'll finish first?
We'll do that later.
Okay.
We'll do that afterwards.
Okay.
Who's going to be the biggest influence this season? And who do you think's going to go missing?
Player or anyone?
Player. Yep.
It's actually quite hard, because loads of players are going to still come in.
Okay, so if we look at the Cropper team now, let's forget about Swift, because he's definitely going to go. He won't be here next season. Let's forget about Swift, and let's forget about Liam Moore, because I think they're working really hard to get rid of him. If you had to get rid of those, and Ulissi is a bit of a maybe because of Leeds as well, or Lise, however you want to say it, it is a bit of a give and go. Who would you think is going to be the biggest influence next season for Reading, as a fan base will attract them, and who do you think is just going to go, who's not going to turn up?
I think Mayte is going to be the most influential. I think he was close to the most influential last season. The amount of goals he scored, the contributions that he makes over the pitch, and I think now that he's got got one more year, I think he'll go on to do very well, even despite the 3-match ban. The player who I think might go missing, I'm not sure, because obviously I compare Paul McShane and Michael Morrison, because they both had very, very good first seasons. I think even though McShane was in that 15-16 season where we didn't finish very highly, he came in and strengthened the defence quite a lot. But I don't think Michael Morrison will will decline next season. I think he's done very well this season. I think he'll do very well next season as well. Will mistakes creep in for Raphael? I'm not sure. I think he's been very good this season. But if there's one particular player that I think will go missing, I mean, I can't really pick one at the moment because we don't know who's going to be here. I mean, perhaps Liam Moore will go missing. I think he went missing a little bit in the past couple of seasons. And it's a shame, really, because I want him to get back to his best. But, yeah, it's... and we've got to consider as well the formation. If we're playing a 3 at the back, Moore's almost certain to start. So hopefully he can step up with McIntyre and Morrison. And if all 3 of them can step up, they'll be a really good force, especially with Yeardom maybe and maybe Richards as well as wing backs. That could be very strong, very, very strong indeed.
Ryan?
So you asked me this before, and who I said then, I said Jordan Hallsgrove will be one of our most influential players. I could see a youngster like that coming in and really stepping up and really like cementing a place in the team. If not him, maybe Michael Elise if he stays, or even Tom McIntyre. So they're the 3 that I reckon it'll be one of them. For player to go missing, I hate to say it, but I could see someone like Andy Yeardom going missing. Just coming back from quite a long-term injury. Obviously played for a bit and then got injured again. In his first season here, he played pretty much every week, went to the African Cup of Nations, played most of that, and then comes straight back into the team. I don't think he's really had a proper break from playing. He's clearly one of our fittest players.
Underrated as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
Definitely.
I love him.
I could see someone like that potentially going missing, like a very, very big player, like your Raphael, like you just said, Liam Moore. But I honestly could see Liam Moore getting knocked out of the squad, out of the starting lineup a lot more next season. But in terms of your week in, week out player, I think someone like Yeardom. I really hope not, but
yeah. But even though people don't really notice him because he's very underrated, if the mistakes start to creep in, people are going to notice that because it's something that he doesn't usually do. Yeah, and that's going to be a problem for him. Very much a problem.
I don't think you can ever. I think Yeardom's one of those players. I don't think will ever. He's one of those players that will just fight and do everything. He's got that mentality, I think. For me personally, I think the most influential will be McIntyre or Omar Richards. I think this season is Omar's to cement. He has no one to cover him at the moment. So he needs to cement it. The person who I think will go missing, I think will be Mite. I think he will be one, and I think Elise. I think his head might be turned. We don't know. All I'm saying is if the rampant pressure of Leeds of Premier League football start ramping up, his head. It doesn't matter what age you are and what highly strung mentally you are. If you're playing in a lower league and a higher league comes to you, you're going to go, yeah, please give me the opportunity to go and do that. So that's who I think. So Ryan was alluding to it as well before. Where do you think we'll finish next season?
I said in my end of season review for the Titleist End, the podcast, I said 13th. And at the moment, I think that's a bit optimistic considering the lack of signings that we've made at the moment. And at the moment, we don't have a squad that's got a lot of depth. And it's going to be the same, I think, as last season, where we signed a lot of players later on in the window, which I don't blame them for because obviously we had that soft transfer embargo. But then it took a lot of time for the players to settle in. And I think they never really recovered from that, despite the good results against, I think it was Cardiff, West Brom and Huddersfield. Mm-hmm. I don't think we ever really recovered from the late signings and they needed to bed in a lot more. And we could see a similar theme with this in the next season as well. And that's why I fear that BOWEN might get sacked in November or something like that again. Obviously, I hope that's a really We look back on this and laugh, at my opinion. But I'm dreading it at the moment. But hopefully we can get some signings in and kick on from there.
My opinion is I don't think we need signings. I'm going to be very controversial here. I'm going to annoy a lot of people with this comment, and I would like to say I'm very sorry, but my opinion is we have 6 youth players who I think deserve more of an opportunity than new signings. I think what we need to do as a club is go back to. I don't think go back, because we've been one every so often to have a youth player that comes through. I think we need to be a club. I'm going to probably get his name wrong. So if I get your name wrong, Thierry Henry of the under-23s. We've got Osgrove. We've got Tom. I talked about him a minute ago. Holmes, thank you. We've got Luke Southwood. We've got CBC. I can't ever say Tom McIntyre. We've got
Boyce Clark.
We've got 7. We've just named 7 players.
Watson could play a role.
Watson could play right back, left back if we needed him as well. We've got Sam Smith who can be here. We know Mark Minolti's going to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to push on, but we'll soon see.
No, I don't think he will as well. But it'd be nice to see him given a chance. And it's nice to see. And I think me and Ryan have spoke about this as well. Mark Minolti, very, but I think he needs a chance. If you think about the youth team, we've just named 11 players there through the youth and through the starting. We think will be. And I think signings, if they come, okay, cool. If they don't come, we don't need to worry.
I think one caveat to that is the fact that I think we need to bed them into a senior first team quite gently, if I'm honest. I think that there's no point in us going along and putting them all in the first team at once.
Okay.
But doing that with...
I know you've only got a few minutes left, so
yeah,
I'm in between the both of you. I do kind of agree with both of you, in the sense, like, I do agree that the youngsters coming through are capable. They need to be eased in, but also we do need to make a couple of signings. Like you said a minute ago, our only option at left back is Omar Richards. I think we need to get a backup left back. A name I was going to mention, someone like Luke Garbutt, on loan from Everton, had a few loan spells away. Never at this level.
Who was the one who was on loan at Schalke?
That was
John Joe Kenny.
John Joe Kenny, yeah.
I wouldn't mind. I'll tell you what. If you watched the Bundesliga during the shutdown, I watched some of Schalke's game. He was amazing.
Yeah.
He is. If he doesn't start for Everton next season, I will be ashamed of him, because he is a quality talent.
But I think we need a couple of backup options. Definitely a backup left back, because Richards is obviously capable, but we need someone else there as another option.
Someone like Ian Hart.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but then with other youngsters coming through as well, I think we will have the squad to potentially push on a bit. I think a top half finish isn't unrealistic.
No, and for me, I'm very much in the same opinion with you, Ryan, and with you, Adam, as well. I'm in very much of opinion of some people's character of the under-23s can go straight in. Some people's character from the under-23s has to be bred in slowly. So for me, so Bowen now has to pick the characters who he thinks can go, right, you go. You go and prove to those Reading fans why you come through our youth and you are good as you are. You're going to have to sit out and watch and help and train and work as hard as anyone else to prove yourself. So one last question before you go, because I know you've got to go in a minute, is will you come on the podcast again?
Yeah, sure. I'll come on the podcast again. I'm not sure if I'll be a regular, but...
no, you won't. We don't want you a regular because you annoy me.
But yeah, I'm sure at some point in the future, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity.
So,
and I'll be happy.
Perfect. So thank you ever so much for coming on. You have been an absolute diamond. What I just want to say to everyone watching and everyone listening, when this goes live, please like, share, subscribe. Adam's profile for Twitter will be down there. Please go and give him a follow. If there's anything else that you guys would like, any questions, Courtney should be back next week, next Monday, for you guys to go through a little bit more transfers. And we've got a game to play with him as well. Next week will be a bit controversial, because I know that I like to pick the controversial teams that you lot don't agree with. And on Friday, we're going to be doing something a little bit different with you guys. We're just going to be talking all kinds of sport. We will talk about Formula One. We will talk about boxing. We will talk about football. We will go through the transfers around the Premier League and the Championship. And we will talk about Scottish football a little bit as well. We will go and talk about wrestling. We will talk about all kinds of things that prop up during the week, just to have a nice, relaxing podcast for you guys. We don't go on holiday. If we do go on holiday, we will still record, and we won't leave you guys hanging for any podcasts waiting for it, unlike some others. But what I would like to say is thank you, Adam, ever so much for coming on. You are an absolute diamond, and I love you so much for being here.
No worries. Pleasure to be here.
It was a lot better than I was expecting, so thank you ever so much. Everyone watching at home, I look forward to seeing what you guys' reaction is. And Ryan, it was all right seeing you. I see you all the bloody time now. You're doing the editing. But no, thank you ever guys so much for watching, and we will look forward to your feedback. Peace!